move over to the next topic and the next speaker, which is Tim. So Tim, if you can take the ball and share your slides.
Yes, will do. Give me 1 second to push it on the screen. Should be this one. So,
yeah, all good.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm curious to what issues I will run into this time. I hope you can hear me well, and I hope my slides will work just fine. So I will present you today with an update from our technical team. So let's get started. Oh, and now my slides won't go forward, of course. There it is. So let's start with a quick run through of the agenda so that you know what to expect from this webinar. We will start with a quick update on the work we already started during the last More-IP and that we have finalized since. This will be followed by an overview of the incidents and maintenances and other platform-related figures. And as Peter already mentioned, we also had to deal with some COVID-19 measures, and I will take you a little bit more in depth on the measures that affected our operations. We're also running some proof of concepts in the background, which I will share some information on. And last but not least, I will provide you with a limited overview on some of the projects we are currently working on. So let's start with the finalized work. Last year, we announced that we were in the middle of the migration of our US-based operations to our partner, Epsilon. And at the time, all the signs pointed to a handover around early July. Due to some design improvements in the backbones and some minor issues we encountered, the migration was delayed and the physical handover was done in September of 2019. Around the same time in the background, we were also in the process of enabling the DNS security extension, or DNSSEC, which was finalized and announced back in August of 2019. DNSSEC is providing an additional security by verifying the provided DNS information is actually correct. And as far as we can find, we are the first IXP to enable DNSSEC. For more information, please check our website on the news button. Under normal circumstances, our operations manager, Konstantinos Prantos, would present you with a detailed overview on the incidents and maintenances we had over the year. I will not go into as much detail on each incident. Instead, I will go over a more high-level overview. We had a total of 31 incidents, out of which 10 were service affecting. 8 of these took place on the Amsterdam platform and another 2 on the Chicago platform. On top of this, we also had 21 non-service affecting incidents, which were shared over the other exchanges. Sorry. We also had a total of 75 announced maintenances, many of which were duplicates over the different exchanges. 26 of these were platform-related items like line card replacements or firmware upgrades and the likings. And we also had 21 maintenances related to the route servers with maintenances for upgrading disk space or memory. Sorry about that. And then we had another 28 maintenances, which include things like upgrades to our ticketing system or management network. I don't have the full details of each incident and maintenance at hand, so if you have any questions, please do email us. We'll make sure all your questions do get addressed. Because of all the COVID-19 measures, we noticed some interesting developments on all of our exchanges. But if we zoom into the Amsterdam network and we start with the connected customer port capacity, we saw a total increase of 12% over the year, basically boosting the capacity from 33.6 to 38.2 terabits. Most noticeable was the 5% increase during the first 9 months since the previous More-IP, and another 7% was shown in the following 2.5 months after the lockdowns in Europe started taking place. We also saw similar developments in the amount of connected 100 gig ports, which went from 251 to 302 ports, an increase of over 20%. 9% of this increase happened before the lockdowns and an additional 11% after. Again, more than half the increase was done in the last 2.5 months. As a result of the growth, 2 of our POP locations, Interaction AMS-5 at Schipholrijk and the Iron Mountain Data Center in Haarlem, are now up for a switch upgrade to handle more ports in the future. And these are planned for the coming months. Looking at our peak backbone utilization, we again see the same numbers. Over the year, we saw several new peaks, with the latest peak being 8.1 terabit in March this year, which is a 34% increase since the last More-IP. We already saw a 17% higher peak in the first 9 months, but this quickly increased with an additional 17% when the lockdown started. On the graph, you can clearly see the sudden growth in early March when the lockdown started. To cope with all these peaks, we have expanded our total Amsterdam backbone capacity with 22% from 27.2 terabit to 33.2 terabit. Nearly half of the upgrades were done in March and April, and more upgrades are being performed as we speak. And even with these sudden increases in traffic, our technical staff has managed to keep all the backbone levels within safety limits to maintain the redundancy on the platform. Looking at peak traffic is one thing, but just as interesting is looking into the amount of traffic going over the exchanges every day. Calculating these back to monthly traffic, we see another similar image. We reached a new peak of 1.9 exabyte in March and April of this year, which is a solid 30% growth since last year. More than half of this growth was instant when the lockdown started and has been stable since. We can show you many explanations on how much this amount of data resembles, like the amount of HD movies being streamed and at the same time, or the works of Shakespeare and the likings. But since we noticed a large increase in traffic usage during office hours, we also expect video conferencing to be a part of this increase. So to put it in that perspective, to record 1 exabyte of data, you would have to record a video call for about 250,000 years, which would mean the video call would have started around the same time the modern Homo sapiens emerged on the planet. So at 1.9 exabit, we are basically hosting the equivalent of 500,000 years of recorded video calls every month. Since the COVID-19 is the topic of the day around the world, I would like to quickly show you what measures we took to make sure the technical staff can maintain our platform. As always, we monitor our network 24/7 for performance and stability. And this task can be done from home just as well. So working from home quickly became the standard. Upgrading a backbone or adding extra ports for customers, on the other hand, is somewhat harder to do from home. For this reason, the engineers have access to our offices and storage space. And as they also need to have access to the data centers, we keep close contact with the data centers while they put their measures in place, just to make sure that access is guaranteed for our engineers. On top of this, we're also keeping a close eye on our stock levels, and we are in constant contact with our suppliers just to make sure that we don't run out of the needed materials and equipment. So looking into the future, or looking at the future, we're working on some of the proof of concepts in the background. And as you know, we're using Huawei as our main supplier for our DCI equipment, the data center interconnect. But as we want to introduce a second vendor to the mix, we started to interview with different vendors. Looking at the latest developments in the technology, we found some very interesting products, which we will be testing in our lab in the near future. Another proof of concept we are working on is the one for our customer-facing switches we have on our platform. We always have been on the lookout for hardware that can improve our platform, but with some recent changes to the roadmap of our current vendor, we decided to step up on this. The first talks with multiple vendors have been performed, and just like with the DCI, there are some really interesting products out there that we will be testing in the near future. For both the DCI and the switches, we are of course somewhat delayed due to the current circumstances. A third proof of concept we have in the progress is the one for our photonic cross connects. Our current supplier, Glimmerglass, has been bought by another company, and they have stopped production of the systems we use, and they have no plans at this moment for a new product. So we now have identified some vendors and received the first specifications, but none of these provide the any-to-any port capabilities we come to love from the Glimmerglass. Nonetheless, we'll be starting up the proof of concept for this as well to make sure we can keep growing our platforms with the high redundancy as you know it. Next to the proof of concepts, we're also working on some other projects, starting with the route server refactoring. Basically, we are redesigning the complete underlying infrastructure for more flexibility and scalability towards the future. We're also enhancing the routing security by implementing modern tools, and we are creating new ones as we go. And we're also creating more automation surrounding the route server infrastructure. On top of this, we're also in the continuous development of the IX API together with DKIX and Links. And we just finished connecting the first customer who will be using the API. And we're also in the process of having our second customer set up as well. And then we have the IX as a service product, which is currently being used and operational in multiple exchanges around the world. At this very moment, we are in the process of shipping out another exchange, and soon we will start building yet another one. The product itself is also continuously being developed to provide more automation and control for the customers. Another major project we're also working on is the move of one of our core switches. We started this last year already, but because of the size and the impact of this project, we want to make sure all the details are covered. And during the preparation stage, we ran into some unexpected and often indirect issues, causing delays in our initial planning. Also, the COVID-19 doesn't help to speed things along, but we are currently in the final stages of preparation. The actual physical migration will be planned once the measures around the COVID-19 are simplified and we have some more freedom to move in and around the data centers. So last and not least on the list are the SLX reseller migrations. And for those who did not attend the last 2 More-IPs, we had to create a little workaround when we were migrating to the SLX platform. The software at the time did not support rate limiting, which is a feature we do use for our resellers. So we introduced an extra switch on the top of the SLXs, which can support the rate limiting. During 2019, the new software supporting this feature was released and tested, and a few versions later, all the bugs have been ironed out, and our provisioning software has been updated to cope with these changes. Last December, we migrated the first few of our resellers to the SLX as part of a production test, and we are now in the process of having all the resellers migrated to the SLX. We also got delayed with all that is going on at the moment, but the switch at NICF is being migrated at this very moment, which will be followed soon by the remaining switches in the platform. Of course, we do have a lot more work going on, but I will not cover everything. So that was it for me. Are there any questions?
There are, Tim.
Oh.
The first one is, or actually one that is on screen now is, you mentioned 2 data centers on upgrade. Do we have any plans to upgrade any of the other remaining data centers in Amsterdam?
Yes, eventually yes. Not at this moment. For now, it stays with Interaction because we're running out of ports, and the same accounts for the Iron Mountain data center, the previous EVA switch. The reason for not going further is because we are in the middle of a proof of concept for a new type of switch. So as soon as we have identified which switch we will be doing, then we will start planning further upgrades again as well. Does that answer the question?
I hope it does. And let me see, there's also something coming in through the chat. Well, you sort of answered it already. Are you currently looking into other vendors? And can you share your thoughts on platform architecture? Are you going to continue with the current setup or considering other architectures as well? Which is a question from Michaelis Oikonomakos. I hope I mentioned the name correctly.
So yes, we are in the, let's say, the proof of concept for the other vendors. So we're definitely looking at that. We have a couple identified, which we are now trying to get to the bottom of the details and the requirements. So that's for the first question. My thoughts on the architecture. Well, let's not run ahead there. We are, for now, keeping our current setup, but we are definitely considering other architectures as well. We're actually going to set up a, how do you call these things? A brainstorm session or a think tank session to think about this, and then basically try to redesign it to the best of our ability to see if we can come up with improvements or maybe even a completely different design. So multiple people, multiple thoughts. We just need to figure out how they fit together or which one is the best or which one is not. So for now, we stay with the current, but in the future, definitely there will be some sessions to change it.
Okay, thank you. There was one other question by Niels Bakker, and I think it's somewhere between you and I, Tim. The question is, has being classified as critical infrastructure by the Dutch government helped you to prepare during the pandemic, or has it actually improved our ability to, for example, access data centers? And maybe I'll start and then hand it over to you. So I think when the pandemic really, or no, I think when the pandemic really was announced and happening, we found that we were prepared. But I'll be honest and say that some of it was really because of the way we operate, and we have, overcapacity and strong operational process. What we did do, though, is that we, of course, reviewed not just our operational measures, but also things like disaster recovery, just to make sure that if the situation would deteriorate, we would still be able to cope with it. And specifically deterioration, for example, if some of our people would get affected by the virus and would not be available to perform maintenance or bug fix type elements, then what would we do? So we actually updated our procedures and made them more granular, specifically to whether it's pandemic or any other disaster that we would have to deal with. So in short, I think we were ready, really based on our normal operational structure and way of working, but we have improved. The other part of your question, did it give us better access? We didn't need any better access. The data centers have been really good and facilitating in providing us access. Some by request, others actually proactively coming back to us stating that because we are vital infrastructure and also important to them, they proactively made sure that our engineers had access to the data centers. So we've not seen an issue there. We have had a discussion with some of the authorities to make sure that if there was a further lockdown, for example, and everybody really had to stay at home and not the intelligent lockdown as it was called in the Netherlands, that we would get a permit for some of our people to travel to the data center and be able to do a performance. So it has helped us to update our procedures, but I think our procedures were pretty strong to start with because we were able to deal with it quite easily, I'll say, even though it was a quite severe situation. I'm not sure if there's anything you want to add, Tim, in ways of maybe specifics about how we dealt with it, or anything you did with the team to further operational stability.
No, basically what I said already in the presentation as well. We kept in close contact with the data centers, with our suppliers. We made sure that access was guaranteed, basically. Yeah, pretty much what you covered as well, and what was already covered in the slides. We didn't have the need to use the vital infrastructure card, to say it like that.
Good way to say it.
Yeah.
Another question coming in, and
I saw it. Yeah.
Let's see who I'll hand it to you because it's to you. The question is, how will AMS-IX deal with the fact that Amsterdam seems to be not very willing to have more data centers in the area? Are there any plans to expand to the rest of the Netherlands where there are data centers that can meet up with the AMS-IX standards? You want to take a stab at it? Should I?
I can try. You can always take over if you have something to add. So the fact that Amsterdam is not very willing to have more data centers in the area, we don't have much say in that. For now, we have the main data centers. We are there already. I think most, if not all, other data centers in the area are either connected remotely to the existing POP locations we have, or of course through the easy access product. Let's not forget about that one. Are we looking into expanding? Not at this very moment, given the circumstances, of course. But at the same time, having said that, we are looking into different ways of getting our reach increased again. One big example there is the IX as a service product, and of course the easy access as well, which basically gives you a direct access to the AMS-IX network. Anything you'd like to add, Peter?
Yeah, I think two things. One, we would be amiss if we would be lying if we say we're not concerned, of course, about that development. And for two reasons. One, because it was sort of unilaterally announced by the local authorities, not just the Amsterdam municipality, but also the larger region, including Schiphol, etc. So there was quite some frustration about that, of course, not just with us, but also with the data centers themselves. But I think also through all the means we have, we are, of course, discussing this with the authorities and trying to figure out when this ban is going to be lifted. But we, I think, should also recognize that it is a challenge. And I think one of the statistics we're seeing is that all the data centers together in the Amsterdam area are using more power than the city of Amsterdam itself. Right, so it is a real challenge to deal with that and to make it work, and not have just the data centers being up and running and nobody having the ability to read a book at night because they sit in the dark. Right, so there are real challenges we need to deal with. But like I said, you know, it is a concern to us because, of course, we are here in Amsterdam and we are relying on those data centers. So that's one, and in close cooperation with the data centers, with the DDA, with the authorities, we of course trying to work our way through this. The second part, are we considering other parts of the Netherlands? There's no concrete plan on the table as such, but as Tim said, yes, we are investigating if there is a need and or an opportunity to do that. You know, always interested to investigate those opportunities, but given the circumstances in Amsterdam, it does, of course, I wouldn't say force us, but it does move us in that direction to see if there's any other places in the Netherlands that we want to go as AMS-IX as well. So I hope that that answers that question. Let me see if there are any others coming up. I don't see any in the chat or in the Q&A. No. Okay. No, nothing further. So that basically concludes our update. I hope you enjoyed it. You learned something, and it was to your expectation. Of course, we had a bit of a rough start. Oh, hang on. There is another question popping up just as we speak. On this is Marijke Kaat. On energy use, do you have any numbers on the power usage of AMS-IX? Well, we don't have them at hand, but we can definitely have a look at it and let you know some of those numbers. But we don't have them at hand, so it's hard to, of course, give you an answer here. But we'll take that offline and see what we can share with you. Let me see if there's any more final go. Going once, going twice. There are any other questions? No. If you do have any questions, you have a palm to forehead moment, oh, I should have asked that, then please don't be shy and reach out to us. Always happy, of course, to answer your questions there. I want to apologize for the fact that we had a bit of a rough start and that the audio was pretty poor. I hope it is much better. It has been much better since. I think it also demonstrates that we are a technology company. We live in a technology world. And even though we deliver a service that is quite robust and the internet is robust in and of itself, if you mind my French, shit does happen. So it does mean that we sometimes have our own challenges as well, technically. But I think it also demonstrates that we are able to work through it because of a strong team and you know, a strong will to solve issues quickly and adequately. So I want to thank everybody for the patience. I want to thank everybody for the participation and the questions. And we, of course, are going to do more of these. So we hope to see you in future of these. There will be a recording, which we will also share if you want to listen back to any of it. And yes, we will also make the slides available once we close the session. So again, thank you for now. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the afternoon. Stay safe, stay healthy, and hope to see you soon in the next AMS-IX Talks webinar. Thank you all, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.